All right, well, good morning, everyone. We are, this morning, I am just going to take one class to kind of do a little bit of a review over what the kids did at LTC. So, Jason just got done going through 1st and 2nd Peter, and I think he did a phenomenal job. Next week, Alex will be tackling, I believe, Thessalonians, right? So this morning, it's going to be kind of a little bit of a lighter class. We won't dive too deep into anything, and we'll probably end a little bit early. But I kind of wanted us to appreciate a little bit of what the kids were learning, right? So LTC is leadership training for Christ. Something this church has been heavily involved in. And what it is you get the kids, and they're participating in these Christian activities, these Christian events. And one of the biggest one is Bible Bowl, where, every year you pick a theme or you pick a book. This year it was really Exodus and the life of Moses, really. And so next year it's going to be the book of Luke. And they had all these questions, and I think it was Kim and Brett that made these questions, right?
You don't make up.
You didn't make the questions. Okay. Somebody else made them. You use them. Gotcha. Well, the kids are going to try to learn all of these questions, and then on the LTC weekend, the weekend of Easter, they sat down and they were asked all these questions, and they had to give their answer, A, B, C, or D. And this is just one event of many. This is probably one of the bigger events, but they have other events like they did puppets, or they have song leading or group singing. They have drama. And it's just a really fun time, and it's a really good activity for our kids to have some fun recreation, but also learn about the Lord in a Christian environment. So LTC is an absolutely phenomenal and wonderful thing. And this morning, I kind of wanted us to go through some of these questions and kind of appreciate what our kids had to learn. And from what I understand, our kids here did pretty well in the Bible Bowl this year, right? Yeah, they did really, really well. I think last year, Abigail Ward got a 97 out of 100, right? I don't quite know the numbers this year, but we'll have them in probably a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah. To get a gold, they have to have 90 to 100 score.
Okay, to get a gold, they have to have 90 to 100. And I think we had several golds this year.
All of our kids got gold.
All our kids got gold. So, as we go through, we're just really only going to go, there are 3 sections to the Bible Bowl slides, and we're only going to look at one of them if we get through that one. And if you miss more than 10, you've already done worse than our kids did. But just to be honest, just genuinely, I actually didn't look through these questions because I was kind of curious what I would get right and wrong on the spur of the moment this morning. These kids have been learning it, but at the same time, it's very humbling. Very humbling to remember, wow, I still have plenty to learn, right? So let's go ahead and start with a prayer. Lord Almighty, we thank you, God, so much for this morning and for today, the chance to get together with our brothers and sisters to think about you, to put aside the cares of the world and to just worship you. We acknowledge you are the Creator and you deserve everything, and that includes our hearts, our minds, our lives. And we ask, God, that we would help us to submit to you, help us to look at the things in our lives that are keeping us from giving you 100%, and God, just give us the strength to cut those things out. Give us the strength to move forward in life and not backwards, to grow closer to you, to look at the hand that causes us to sin and to cut it off and to throw it away. And we know, Lord, that no matter how difficult that task may seem, with you all things are possible. We thank you, God, so much for events like LTC where our kids can learn about your word and that we can help instill in them your values. We ask, God, that you would help us to study our Bible every day. We ask, God, that you would help us to increase in a knowledge and grace. We ask, God, that you would bless us this morning as we worship you, that you would help us to focus on you, and that we would give you glory Through your Son, we offer this. In Jesus' name, amen. So, we were going through Exodus on Wednesday. I don't think we're going to get through the whole book, but it just kind of happened to coincide with LTC. I don't think that was planned in any sense. It was actually Blake who started Exodus. And Exodus is a big book, so we've been going through it. Well, our kids were going through Exodus too. And Exodus is a really powerful book of, God delivering Israel. It's God kind of delivering on a lot of promises he made in the book of Genesis with Abraham, right? It picks up where Genesis left off. It's really the sequel, right? And so Exodus, the emphasis, the theme is deliverance. And so that first half of the book is really trying to get Israel out of Egypt to Mount Sinai. And then the second half of the book is really mostly the laws and the covenant, and it's really the relationship God would have with his people. And so underneath the concept of deliverance is this concept of the relationship God would have with his people. That he would take these people that he promised that he would do, but he would take these people not because they were great, not because they were amazing, but simply because he loved them. He would rescue them from the terrible situation where they were enslaved and oppressed, and he would make them his special people, his own country, his own nation, that he would give them his divine laws. They had so many blessings given to them. But Exodus also kind of demonstrates the patience of God. As through this venture, the people of Israel that he's trying to rescue, that he's trying to save, that he's trying to make his own people, keep kind of resisting him. Kind of on all these different times when Moses was told, you're going to speak, and Moses is like, I'm not really that good at speaking. Or whenever they're pushed up against the Red Sea, and despite all the plagues that they've seen, they go, we're just going to die. Or whenever they get through all into the wilderness, and every step of the way, they're like, we're just going to die. And it shows God's incredible patience because of how much he loved these people and how he wasn't going to give up on them, right? And so Exodus is about divine power and triumph. It's about a work of fulfillment. It's about a people called, God's election, this realization of creating a nation. And so Exodus is a very powerful study as you go through it. You see so much on just the person of Moses. You see so much on the power of God and the plagues. You see so much of God's patience with the people, like I said. You see so much of God's glory through the Ten Commandments and through the laws, right? And you learn quite a bit about God throughout all that. So Exodus is a very powerful book. For the kids, they really didn't focus too much on the law section. They focused more on the narratives. And I think those are the ones that we're probably a little bit more familiar with. So let's just go ahead and kind of walk through this. Like I said, this morning's going to be a little bit more casual. If you have something to say, just let me know. But just kind of test yourself. Round one. The book of Exodus begins by naming the sons of Israel. Who came to Egypt with which man? Who did the sons of Israel come to Egypt with? Jacob? Jacob. You were right, Dorothy. When Jacob, Joseph's father, initially brings his family to Egypt, how many do they number in all? And so this is one of those questions where when I'm reading the Bible, I don't necessarily commit this one to memory. I'm just reading through and I'm just like, okay, they're getting to Egypt, so many and so people. This is kind of like a genealogy question where I'm like, I kind of skimmed through this. But the kids had to memorize this. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 70? Right. Yeah. Woo, got it. What was the initial reason that the new king of Egypt, to whom Joseph meant nothing, gave for being afraid of the Israelites? So you might remember that the king of Egypt, he wanted to oppress the Israelites. And this is the king after, whenever one king kind of lifted up Joseph for being so good, but another king came and he's like, I don't care about Joseph. I don't care about their family. I don't care about those promises. Why did he want to do that, Kim?
The king the king that was there when Joseph was there,
Mhm.
he was really good to the Israelite people. He gave them the very best land.
Yeah.
And because he really valued Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
he valued his family.
Right. He really valued his family.
But
And
not this one.
And under Joseph, I mean, like we just learned, there was really just about 70 people, right? And so he took Joseph, because remember, Joseph, he interpreted those dreams that made Egypt do really well when a famine hit. So they saved enough food for when the famine would hit. They had 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, if I'm not mistaken. And they stored enough. They didn't just go through all their food. And then they had plenty of food during the famine. And what that happens is all the other nations start coming and saying, hey, we need food. And then Egypt is in a good position with leverage to say, well, give us your land and you can have food. And so Egypt just prospered, right? What, Kim?
And God has blessed the Israelites.
That's right. God blessed the Israelite people. And so the king of Egypt, being so appreciative of everything that happened because of Joseph, he said, Joseph, your family, you're going to be taken care of. You're going to be well taken care of. Next king didn't care. Instead, he saw the Israelites as an enemy. Why? Their men were extremely well-built and strong, very warlike people. They became very numerous, taller than all the people of the surrounding nations. I think the answer is they became numerous. They went from 70 to more. Randy?
You're correct.
Oh, correct. Randy probably knows this whole PowerPoint front and back. Yeah, the elders went through this, and they wanted to make sure that there weren't any mistakes or anything. I didn't have too much time to go through it, but I know the elders combed through all these questions to make sure they were clear and accurate. What happened to the Israelites as they became increasingly oppressed with harsh labor making bricks and mortar? So that king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, said, let's give them more work, right? And so they were tasked with building bricks, and at one point he said, you guys got plenty of time, don't you? Well, we're going to make it even harder for you. We're going to add this thing on top. The answer is they multiplied more, they became filled with bitterness and resentment, they began to decrease in number, they blamed God and turned against him in their hearts. Answer? I think they just multiplied more, right? The goal was to try to oppress them, but I think they just kept growing, right? And this is one of those moments where they're crying out to God, and God heard their cries, which is a very powerful concept in and of itself, right? And God said, okay, it's time for me to take action. 5, the first instructions. This one's from Hebrews. The first instructions did Pharaoh give what first instructions did Pharaoh give the Hebrew midwives, Sifra and Puah, regarding the newborn Hebrew babies? Kim?
This is not from Hebrew.
This is not from Hebrew.
The one error that after reading it so many times, read this.
Okay, gotcha. I was about to say, I don't think that's in Hebrews. That's in Exodus 1:16, I think. So the Pharaoh told these Hebrew midwives, I want you to do this. What were they told to do whenever they delivered the baby? It says, kill the boys, but let the girls live. Kill the girls, but let the boys live. Or kill the boys, let the girls live. Kill the girls, let the boys live. Kill the girls and the boys, throw the boys into the Nile River. And of course, you can think in your head, what about Moses? What happened to Moses? Well, Moses' mother put him into the river because that was what she was technically supposed to do. So the answer is D. They threw the boys into the Nile River. And so, I mean, if you're trying to weaken a group of people, what? Oh. They were supposed to be thrown into the Nile River, weren't they?
That's later.
Oh, the first instruction. See, all right. I got that one wrong. All right. Very humbling. All right. I admit.
Hey, that's okay because we let it slip through. We have Hebrews 1:16 in there.
That's all right.
We were all laughing when this came up.
Okay.
We come through this how many times and we missed that.
Yeah. All right. Humbling. All right. The first instruction. And, you got to always read the question. First instruction. Okay. What?
I
Karen?
just wanted to say that Shiphrah and Puah are two of my favorite women in the Bible.
They are.
Yes, think how brave they have to be and how trusting in order to not do what the king said.
Yes.
They're just two of my favorite.
I mean, they were really risking their lives in doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever they said, no, we're not going to do this. I mean, they were in this position where, their entire life was devoted to helping delivering women or delivering babies from women. And that's a very wonderful position to have. And the king tells you to do this. And they said, no, they stood by their principles. Yeah, I agree, Karen. They're worthy of being your favorite. Yeah.
God helped them have an excuse that the king would accept.
Yeah. And God helped them have an excuse that the king would accept. Shiphrah and Puah feared God and disobeyed Pharaoh's first instructions. All right, here we go. What second order did Pharaoh give to all his people regarding the Hebrew children? Okay, this is the one that I was talking about. I forgot that there were two different instructions. And so this is the one where, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be because I just were, where the boys went into the Nile. Let's see. Yes, the boys went into the Nile. Because if you're trying to weaken a people, but you don't want to just automatically get rid of them, you get rid of the boys, because if you just get rid of the boys, well, then they're going to grow up, and there's going to be an entire generation with less boys, and they're not going to be able to make children as much, right? And also, you get rid of the boys because they're stronger, so they can't fight against you. But you're not trying to wipe them out altogether, so later on, you can still have another generation, right? You're just trying to reduce their numbers. Number 7, which of the following is not true regarding the birth of Moses? His mother put him in a papyrus basket coated with tar and pitch. His mother placed him in a basket among the reeds of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. His mother hid him for 2 years. So I'm just talking out loud here. I'm pretty sure A is right. Placed him in a basket. I think it might be D. Let's see. D. I don't think she hid him for 2 years. I think it was for so many months or something along those lines. She did hide him a little bit. 3 months? Yeah. Because 2 years, that's quite a long time. I think after 3 months, yeah, that makes sense. And just there's a beautiful picture there of, she was supposed to put him in the Nile, and she did technically put him into the Nile, right? And there was Moses. I think the name Moses means drawn out of the water, and I've always really liked that because it might connect to our baptism a little bit. Aren't we all Moses? Aren't we all drawn out of the water? And whenever he came out of the water, he was introduced into royalty. And I can't help but think, when we were baptized, when we came out, we were introduced into royalty as God's children. Just something I always connected. Which of the following is true regarding Pharaoh's daughter? She named the baby Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. Well, I kind of gave that one away. She paid someone else to nurse the baby, Moses' own mother, for her. When the child was older, Moses' mother took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and then Moses became Pharaoh's daughter's son. Well, I'm pretty sure A is right, and I'm pretty sure B is right, and so I'm guessing it's all of the above. Yeah. I'm doing good. How are you guys doing? Whenever we're coming across these questions, how are you guys feeling? You doing good? You got them all right? No? Again, it's humbling. I mean, understand, and just remember, if our teenagers can do this, so can you, right? I mean, it just takes a little bit of dedication, and they would get together once, I think at some point twice a week, and they would just kind of just go through these questions. It's an important lesson on Bible study of if you just sit down and just learn it, you'll remember it. You just read it and think about it. You'll eventually get it down. Kim? What? Goes all the way down to the 3rd grade. Not even just teenagers, but people who are just 8 years old. I mean, this is powerful. Kevin?
And they just did 100 questions out of 400 that they were.
What's that?
They only did 100. We pulled randomly 100 questions out of over 400 questions.
Oh, I didn't know that one. So the actual Bible book quiz was 100 questions, but you didn't know which 100 questions out of the 400. So they had to try to learn 400 questions. Man! And yet all our kids still got gold, over 90%. Again, they can do it, so can we. It just takes a little bit of time and effort. After Moses killed the Egyptian for beating a Hebrew, the Pharaoh tried to kill Moses. This caused Moses to flee Egypt. Where did Moses live after that? So it's probably not Hogwarts. Probably not, if I'm not mistaken. And so again, whenever I'm reading my Bible, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm reading my Bible, this is something I typically kind of gloss over, right? I mean, unless I have a map right next to me, because a lot of, all the lands, where the people are traveling, sometimes, I don't have a good visual of it, then I don't really remember it. So this one, I think it's Midian, but because I don't think it's Canaan, and I don't think it's Red Sea, because I recognize those two. If I'm not mistaken, it's Midian. Yeah, because that's where he goes into the desert, and he's the shepherd, if I'm not mistaken. While Moses was tending sheep near Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, who appeared to Moses in a bush, that was not... Okay, while Moses was tending sheep near Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, who appeared to Moses in a bush, that was not being burned by fire. So remember, it's God speaking through the bush, the burning bush, but very often throughout the Old Testament, you'll see this character pop up, speaking in the place of God. And it is not an eagle, not a serpent, not Zipporah, his wife. It is the angel of the Lord. And that's a really interesting study whenever you look at the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, because the angel of the Lord always talks in the person of God, making you think, is the angel of the Lord God? And there are some people who theorize the angel of the Lord is Jesus before he's incarnated. I think it's a solid theory. What was the first thing that God tells Moses about himself at the burning bush? Classic scene. This is where God, what was his first thing? I am always with you, and you will be my instrument to work wonders in Egypt. I have seen the affliction of your people in Egypt. I am going to use you to lead your people to the land of Canaan. I am the God of your fathers. You know, I can think of what God said, but I'm trying to think what's the first thing. Mike, what do you think?
D.
D? I know he said that, but I couldn't remember it's B or D. Let's see. D, you were right. Good job, Mike.
And the first thing he really told him was to get his sandals off of his feet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. That's a good point. That's a good point. Get your sandals off your feet. Moses asks God what his name is in case the Israelites ask who sent him. What does God tell Moses? And they put the translation in here because some translations are different. Jehovah, Yahweh, I am who I am, the Holy One of Israel. This is a really important statement because this is really big for the Old Testament, what God says. Does anyone want to answer? Rob, what do you think?
C.
C? Yeah. I am who I am. That one's a little bit of a head scratcher when you first hear it. It's like, what does that mean? Well, a lot of different theories. I think it just means he is eternal, right? I just am. There's nothing that you can really describe God because he's so big and so infinite. I am, right? Not I was, not I will be. I am for now. I am. Mike?
You just said what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Not I was, not I will be, but I am.
That's right. I mean, the universe had a beginning, the universe is going to have an end, and God's going to be on both sides of it. God is just the constant. He just is. In the same way that, in our perspective, the sky is just always there. It just is. But the truth is, the sky won't always be there. It hasn't always been there. God just is. At the burning bush, God tells Moses that he and the elders of Israel are to go and ask what of the king of Egypt. So this is when God says, Moses, I want you to go talk to them. Talk to the king of Egypt. This is what I want you to tell him, right? What does he say? Let us, the Israelites, take a 3-day journey into the wilderness and offer sacrifices to our God. Let us go into the land of Canaan that our God has promised our fathers. Let us have fair working conditions and proper compensation for our labor. Let us build a temple to the God of our fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I like the answers on this question because they all seem plausible. We ultimately know that God is trying to send the Israelites out of Egypt, right? And this is just me thinking. And so what would God ask at the very beginning? It was very similar to them going out of Egypt. I think it's A. Yep. We'll probably do this for another 5 minutes, and then we'll end early. Like I said, we're going to end early this morning. How will the Israelites plunder the Egyptians, right? And so this is an interesting one because God said to Moses, the Israelites, he's like, you guys are going to plunder the Egyptians. And they're probably thinking, we're slaves. What do you mean we're going to get to take everyone's gold, right? He says, each man is to have 1 or 2 swords ready and strapped to his side during their exodus. God will miraculously fill the bags of the Israelites with their gold and silver objects of the Egyptians. Each Hebrew woman is to ask her neighbor and any woman living in her house for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. The destroyer will come through the whole land of Egypt on the night before the Exodus. The next morning, the Israelites will find that every Egyptian has been put to death by the hand of the Lord. So this one, anyone want to see? That's what Wanda says, and she was right. Yeah, good job. Which of the following did Moses use and as an excuse not to go and speak to Pharaoh? So again, this interaction between Moses and God, I mean, it's crazy to think in the Bible that there are people who are God appears to them and they're like, no, I'm not going to do that, right? Moses is trying to kind of convince God, like, I'm not the right person for the job, right? And you see God's patience, where God talks to him and God responds to every complaint and concern he has, because he's just so loving. Which excuse did he use? He said, I am slow of speech and tongue. I've never been eloquent in the past. I am not eloquent since you have spoken to your servant. All of these doesn't really quite make sense. So which one would we think it is? Madeline, are you paying attention? Which one do you think it is? You're right. A. So, after God reassured Moses about his lack of speaking ability, why then did the Lord's anger burn against Moses, right? And so, again, Moses comes with a complaint. God says, okay, I'll give you this. Moses comes with another complaint. God says, okay, I'll give you this. Moses comes with another complaint. I mean, we got to appreciate God's patience, but again, God's patience has a limit where he says, that's enough. I mean, it sounds like a parent dealing with a kid. He's like, I know I'm giving you a lot, but I'll give you this. I know you have worries, but I'll give you this. And at some point, it's like, okay, Moses, just go do it, right? And so why did the Lord's anger burn against Moses? What was the reason written right there? Moses failed to remove his sandals from his feet. Moses asked the Lord to send someone else. Moses married a Midianite woman. Moses did not know what name to call the Lord. And so, just thinking, Laurel, B. Absolutely. See, some of these are like, oh yeah, I remember reading that in school or in Bible class, and a lot of these are like, I didn't read that. Right? Again, because I think sometimes when we just read our Bible, sometimes we tend to gloss over details, you know. And I think one of the keys to really trying to get to understand your Bible is that you don't gloss over anything. Like you kind of stop at every little detail and you ask yourself, what's the point here? Why this detail? What's to learn from this detail? And whenever you start having that approach to Bible study, it takes you longer. You're not just reading, you're studying, but you learn so much more and you kind of dig into the depths of the Bible. And so with tests like these, where we're trying to get the kids to notice the details, we're doing the first half of the study for them. They're stopping, they're looking at the details, and hopefully later on in their life, or as Kim was teaching them, they would ask the question, why this detail? And then that's where you really learn about God. And so these are really helpful just for kids and for adults. When Moses and Aaron met with the elders of the Israelite, which of the following was true? Aaron told the elders everything the Lord had said to Moses. Signs were performed before the people. The people believed and they bowed and worshiped. Or D, all of the above. So, definitely, no, I don't know this one. I'm trying to think. And does anyone who hasn't studied the test, not you, Randy, does anyone want to make a good guess? Bob, do you have a feel for any of these? I'm kind of D. Okay, because I knew Moses had signs that he had to perform, and I knew that they told everything. I think Aaron was the one who said it, but I wasn't sure, did they really bow and worship? Because, you know, the Israelites, sometimes they should have been doing, but they weren't. But I guess at this point they did, right? So again, I haven't studied this, and that's one of those details you gloss over. Let's do one more. So the first time that Moses and Aaron appeared before Pharaoh, he says, who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not blank the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. Right, so when Moses and Aaron came to Pharaoh and said, Pharaoh, I want you to let my people go for a 3-day excursion. And Pharaoh's like, who is your God? I don't what him, right? I don't bow down to him. I don't like him. I don't know him. I don't respect him. And so I'm thinking in my head, I think it's D. I think he was saying, I don't respect your God, right? We're going to find out. And it's C. I don't know your God. So, if it makes you feel better, the preacher got several wrong too. Kim?
The reason behind that is because Pharaoh thinks he is a god. He is God, and so he does not respect any of the gods
Right.
that the Egyptians worship.
That's right. Right.
Why should he?
It's like, he thinks, Kim's saying, he thinks he is a God, right? And he's like saying, I don't know your God. Why would I want to know your God? I'm God, right? Right? And so, I mean, in my mind, I could have seen D. He's like, I don't respect your God. But it's C, because he thought himself, and as you get to know more about, like just these questions, as you get to know more about what surrounds it, you can start getting a good estimate about what the actual answer is, right? Whenever you know more about Pharaoh, you could say, he just doesn't know God. He doesn't want to know God. And just, so this morning was really more of a, if you see one of our kids, ask them about LTC and congratulate them for doing well, right? Because our kids just did phenomenal. And every Easter, we have this weekend where we go visit, where we go and they perform at LTC, and it's just so encouraging whenever people from the church come. I mean, it was only in Noblesville this year. It wasn't far at all. And so next year when this rolls around, consider maybe helping direct it, helping teach the kids. Consider just showing up, because it's a great time where we go. And Jeremy, Abigail, Victoria, they did these art pieces. It was phenomenal. Abigail made this little model of the temple. It was phenomenal. And Victoria drew a snake, the staff turning into a snake. It was impressive. Jeremy made, I think it was just the coolest little Lego setup where it's the Pharaoh in his house, but it's surrounded by frogs. There are frogs in it, right? And I think they're still out there, aren't they? And so when you see these, tell the kids that they did an awesome job, because what we're doing here is we're trying to invest in our kids to try to get them interested in the Lord. And these are things that they're gonna be benefiting from their entire life, right? I mean, whenever they're sitting in a Bible class 20 years from now, they're going to think to themselves, I remember what I learned from LTC, that Pharaoh said he didn't know the Lord. And if there's any reason to invest, it's in our kids' spirituality. So I just want to encourage you to say a prayer for our LTC, and when LTC rolls around next year, consider what you can do, whether it's getting involved or whether it's just showing up and encouraging them. All right, anyone want to make any comments? All right, we will end early this morning. Thank you guys for being here.